All right, we have a quorum, so we can get started. We don't, I don't believe we have any citizens' comments.
Did not.
Okay. Let's take a look at the minutes from January. Motion to approve.
I'm so moved.
Great. Second.
Second.
All right. All those in favor? Aye.
Hi.
Opposed? Abstentions? That pass. All right. Administrative reports. Well, let's see. I did go to the Residents Academy to tell them all about our board. It was actually went very well. Actually had a person come up after and ask about joining the board. Unfortunately, when she talked to Laura, it turns out that she's gone every summer totally. It worked pretty well, and we even avoided the massive thunderstorm that was when that big front came in.
Oh,
And part of this was I'm talking and then I turn them over to Jeff Hurd and he takes them over to this history center and they just made it before the rain hit.
good.
And he said that went really well because he actually had a bunch of people sign up to be members and he sold several medallions for the historic district. Yeah.
Nice.
Oh, really pretty well. We are, of course, now down to just the four of us members. So we need, for one more meeting, we'll need everyone to be here. And hopefully, the board was gonna pick up 3 great new members for us here in the next month or so, right?
Plan.
So hopefully we'll be up to full speed pretty soon. All right, basically that's all I've got. So Scarlett's not here tonight. Mindy, you're up. You have any
yeah.
reports?
A little bit of the same. Because of the dire situation, I looked at kind of our options about how to fill the board in the short term. And I came up with, it's the best thing to do is to wait for all the applicants and wait for the existing timeline and not try to do an short-term one-person appointment. So that means that the new 3 members will all have the same effective date of starting on April 1st. But the other commissioners and municipal staff, that, you know, the manager especially is aware that we're in a tough spot right now, and any support we need, we can, you know, ask for, whatever that means. But not ideal situation. And I also just reiterated, but I'll be spending special attention looking for architects and historic preservation experience. Anything else? Realtor is already, we already have that one filled, but anything else come into mind as far as skill sets?
Yeah, I did talk to that architect with historic experience about signing up, and I believe he's going to do it.
Great.
For his name.
Great. I don't look at any of the applications until the deadline passes, and then I look at everybody at the same time and do my sorting that way. So I can't tell you if she or he applied, or anybody, or even how many total people applied yet, but I will know at the end of this month. And if there's any concerns or anything, I'll let you all know next month.
Yeah, I just talked to him yesterday, and so I'm hoping he will apply.
February 28th is the deadline.
I went with it's just 1 year. You can do it for a year.
Yeah,
See if you like it. I think that sold him.
So after the deadline, all the commissioners will get the applications, and then we'll have all of March to go through them and figure it out. And then other commission stuff, the board's realignment process is moving forward, and now we're in the stage of I and all the boards need to get really clear and kind of write up what we believe our core responsibilities are moving forward. This isn't anything that the commission needs to vote on, but I just want to capture it for prosperity. So we have we could call it our work plan. We could call it the charter, although that usually is what we vote on. I don't know. We don't have a word for it, but we need to come up with what we want to make sure is preserved. I'll use that word moving forward in the new economic development and sustainability. That's its name, but it includes historic preservation group. So I'm not sure what else we want to prioritize this year, especially with such short people, but we have the draft going right now that I started and I think I sent around, but that's my priority to make sure we get that solidified in the next few months. And then other than that, related to historic preservation, I don't have anything else. Nothing else is coming to mind. I'll let you know if something else comes up.
Okay, great, thanks. Laura, do you have anything for her?
I really don't. The only thing I wanted to just remind everybody is that we're completely gutting and redoing the municipal website. And I've added a section under the residence section for historic homes. So most of the resources that we had, like the map of the historic district and the design guidelines and the vetting a contractor and all of the other things, the preservation briefs, were located under the Historic Preservation Board. But if a resident didn't know to look for them there, they wouldn't necessarily think to find them there. So the Historic Preservation Board page will link to that section. So if they go to the Historic Preservation Board, they can get there. But I think it's more likely that a resident would be looking for information about renovating their home or the historic district under the homes section.
Right.
So that's where I moved it to. So everything is staying. We're not getting rid of anything. We're just kind of moving it around. And we'll have a much better search function. 65% of the people who go to our municipal website don't go through the front door. They don't go through mountlebanon.org. They just Google. So I want to make it, if they type in Mount Lebanon Historic District, they go to the page that they're supposed to. So it's a big undertaking. We have more than several hundred pages that we're moving over one by one and editing and changing and making sure they're updated by hand, just because it's a 30-year-old website. So think of how much, it's like a 30-year-old house, right? Your closet's full of stuff and you're like, I think I want everything I have, but I don't. And then you start pulling stuff out and you're like, why do I have this? So we're updating everything. So it's an undertaking, but there'll be a lot of good resources, historic resources for residents.
Do you have a completion date?
It'll be this spring. So our current website turns off in June. So, yeah.
I would start do anything or keep in mind at this point that a year from now, Historic Preservation Board won't exist.
Correct,
That's
but there will be a board that's charged with it. So, basically, we tend to think, because we're involved in this stuff, that we put things on the website next to either who takes care of something or who thought of something. Well, the residents don't think like that. So for example, block parties are done by the Public Works Department. Nobody would think to look there. So we're putting the block parties under the residents, right? We're putting snow removal of streets on a transportation section, not under Public Works. Because if you have a question about your street and we're putting under the transportation will be anything that involves a car parking, or any type of transportation, sidewalks, our pedestrian campaign, all of that is going under transportation. So yeah, so regardless of whatever the boards are called, those assets will still be on there. And we do have, like right now, all of the boards and authorities as they exist are moving over and getting pages. And then what we're going to do is we're archiving the ones that are merging. So it will kind of freeze as of April 2024. And then we'll have the new board, and then all of our agendas, minutes and videos and everything will stay on the website for 3 years. And then once that 3 years has run out, we figured everybody will have captured the assets they need, and then it'll go forward under the new name only. So we figured that was a good compromise.
So we'll still keep an Historic Preservation website. We just won't call it Historic Preservation Board.
It'll be under historic homes.
Links and all the cool stuff that's on there.
Correct. For historic homes.
We won't lose any of the content.
Correct.
in other words.
Correct. And maybe more. I mean, again, the new board, I'm sure education will be part of its charter as well. So.
Particularly because I'm thinking about things like contractors or somebody wanting to contact, if it's to send out those
Right.
letters like that you get sometimes.
Right.
They're gonna look on the website. If they don't see anything that says historic preservation, we're not gonna get anything. They're gonna go to the historical site. So as long as we have something that put into Google or something that search that says historic preservation on Lebanon, there's
Right.
grab them, right? So
It'll be under homes. And we'll probably link to it from the business district too, because there is some crossover there as well. There'll be a link from the businesses section to the historic district. So. Yep. And the businesses are putting together a design guidelines too. They got a grant to write that. So
Nice.
so that will be under businesses. It's all kind of intermarried.
Well,
That's all I
June's
have.
coming up. That's pretty aggressive. I'm gonna switch over in June.
Yeah, that's why I don't have a whole lot of hair left.
Big job.
Good job.
It's never gonna be done. That's the other thing that we always thought of these websites is we're doing them and now it's done. It's never gonna be done. It's gonna be built to grow and change, and that's why we kind of got, shoehorned in the way we were because it wasn't able to grow. So it will be good, but not perfect when we're done with it, and we'll continue to
Yeah.
improve it and add things and change it and upgrade as we go. And that's probably more important than anything, the ability to.
You guys have an IT manager that does it all, or do you do it?
When you say does it, like the back end, like I handle the content, but IT handles all of the back end, and we're working with a consultant right now because this project is just too big and none of us would be able to do any of our regular work if they
Right.
weren't doing some of the
Absolutely.
design work, so.
I just wondered.
And they're working on us with best practices and stuff like that, so it's really a joint project between my department and the IT. That's all.
Very good, thanks. Hey, continuing business, anything up with historic signage?
I don't have anything.
Yeah. I think we're good there, right? They're
Yeah.
gonna set it up so people stop running over them and stealing
That's
them.
right. I don't know if we can. They're too popular.
That's good. Brick streets, I don't think we have anything there either, Matt.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, every year, the municipality allocates approximately $3 million for street and sidewalk improvements. That includes complete reconstruction, repairs, which like spot repairs, as well as mill and overlay of asphalt, brick repairs, and now included in that will be brick reconstruction. So out of this existing budget that we have been using for the past more than a decade, approximately $3 million, we will be now looking at holistically at brick streets when we're evaluating what needs to be reconstructed or repaired. The next commission meeting, which is next Tuesday, not tomorrow, the 28th, we'll see what the commission will see for the first time what the engineers recommend I'll just call it improve, what streets we improve this year in 2023. I don't think that there's a significant amount of brick work on there, but I'm not sure if there is. I believe it's repairs. But anecdotally, in like the conversations I've had with engineers, they're looking at the following year, 2024, having some significant brick work done. So no major changes, that's not a big update, just that's kind of now the path moving forward is we're considering brick in that. We still, as an outstanding to do, which I should try maybe get that on public discussion, is really finalize of the 9.5 miles, which 8.5 we are 100% committing to or prioritizing committing to keeping as brick when they reach the end of their life and they need to be reconstructed, because there are some of those one-off streets, whether it's because of the steepness, the grade, or because of just they're being like one-off and the end as a dead end in the side of the municipality and the only brick street in that area, that it might not make sense, and we'll deliberately decide not to do that. So that hasn't been decided yet, what those streets are, and I'm sure it'll be a little contentious, but I think it's an important conversation to have and to put into the public record, so we don't have to keep having this conversation every year.
Okay, thanks.
Sure.
This point, public ed, we're not doing anything till we get more volunteers. And we do have a little something in the budget to do something, perhaps with architecture help as a workshop or something, but we'll put that off till April, actually, when we actually have more people on board. All right, comprehensive plan. The plan is at the stage of breaking up, creating these focus groups, and I attended my first one, and I thought it went pretty well. They have a lot of input, right? They've created, it's amazing the amount of input they've gotten from the municipality, from the people. And that was an interesting part of going to these. And I was looking at some of it ahead of time too. And it's impressive. They are, going to use these and the focus groups sort of evaluate this input of data that they have now before they're coming up with what specific things are we needing to work with. My focus group, they're calling resiliency and economic development focus group, not sustainability. They changed that wording.
Interesting, resiliency.
The term resiliency rather than sustainability. So that the focus group is called resiliency and economic development.
Uh-huh.
Which we might, and it
Yeah.
was sort of a precursor of our future committee
Yeah.
created, right? Because basically that's who we had there were the environmental sustainability folks, the historic folks and the economic development folks hashing it out. And since to reflect that dynamic, it did occur to me it can be hard to get historic preservation in there. Those folks have a lot of specifics. They say, oh, we want to do booth, we want to do this, or we don't want to do that. And historic preservation is more like an overlay of a consideration for when you're thinking about all those things, rather than having specific concrete things that are going into a comprehensive plan that relate to historic preservation. So I was trying I think we'll be meeting again, trying to think of, well, what do we want to see? What do we want to do in the next 10 years in relation to historic preservation? Maybe we want to finalize the Brick Street plan, get that out fully operational, right? Are there other things to think about? Do we really want to pursue revising or expanding the historic district? It's something that we've talked about, or even creating a separate one.
We did talk about that. I thought that was a pretty big priority, actually, was expanding the historic district. It would like adding on, making it contiguous, not a separate, isn't that correct? Like not having a.
Some folks would suggest maybe Sunset Hills as its own separate district. Problem with that is that would be a much bigger job and more, it would cost a lot of money, because basically we'd be redoing in a different vein with a different historic theme, everything that you did to create the current historic district to create two separate ones.
Right.
It'll be a lot more efficient to modify the existing one. But that still is a big undertaking and would probably involve hiring a consultant to do a lot of that work, because it's still a major endeavor to do that. But I think it might be worth considering. There's advantages and disadvantages to doing that. The advantage, obviously, you could expand the district. The disadvantage is you could lose part of your district.
Oh.
Because things have changed since we created the district. Some houses have been torn down.
Yes.
That's one neighborhood where the boundary is, and the boundary might shrink because you tore down the contributing. Some people have done that. And so, and you go back and you look at the plan, you're looking for like a contiguous association of structures. And if all of a sudden you're creating too big a gap, they'll say, boom, okay, that part gets lopped
Right.
off. Or that house will be all of a sudden, hey, it's not part of the district anymore. That can happen. When you sort of look at it that way and revise a district. I don't know that there would be too many examples of that, but I'm just pointing that up. That is a possibility when you go to the length of trying to have revising the district. It's not just automatically going to be expansion.
Shrunk a little bit.
Right. And so, if you want to pursue that, I think we would need to spend some time looking at what are the potential impacts of doing that? Where are we thinking that it would expand? Because we may not be able to expand it anyway much. Because if you don't have enough of those areas where you could demonstrate historical continuity and contiguous contributing structures, you're not going to be able to just expand the boundary of the district. There were reasons for why the boundaries were put where they were. They weren't totally arbitrary. They seem like it, and there's a certain arbitrariness to it, but it is based on that notion of continuity and historicity. So we could do that.
Is there a percentage, Phil, of contributing structures that need per square foot or square mile that need to be be noted as a historic district? Do you have to have a certain number per square mile, or I don't even know?
No, I mean, a district itself could be any size. I mean, it could be a block. You know,
Okay.
just a storefront block or that happens to have a lot of significance, and you can call it a district. But it has to be a series of contiguous, historically relevant structures that are relevant to the theme. And it's more, and there's no formula for how big the gap could be, right? It's sort of professionals take a look at it. It gets reviewed at the State Historic Preservation Board in terms of what you're proposing, and they have to, approve it or agree. So you can't just willy-nilly do it, or unless you want to add this building here or there. There are other people will be looking at it as part of a lengthy review process. So it is a big task to actually do this. But if it's something we think we want to do, then we should definitely get it into the comprehensive plan, because at least in this next 10 years, take a close look at it and get it started. And I would recommend revising and expanding the current district rather than trying to create a new one,
Yeah.
just because it's much more difficult to get a second completely independent historic district in the same municipality. You have to have a totally different theme, and you've got to have a reason for why it's a different district and not an expansion of your current district. You can tweak the historic theme a little bit in order to expand it. That might be one way to get, like, maybe Sunset Hills or part of Sunset Hills into the current district, is by looking at what makes Sunset Hills significant historically. That should be what would be the theme there. Our theme was based upon sort of transportation and mobility of the first half of the 20th century, basically, with a specific time frame. So it could be done. I don't want to push too hard for it unless we're sort of in agreement that that's what we want to do, but I will if you think it's worthwhile.
What do you think, Mary Ellen? Come on, speak up. How about you, Matt? What do you think? I think it's a great idea to expand the existing. I don't think it's a good idea to have a brand new. I don't know what the historic significance of Sunset Hills might be. There probably is something that we could come up with.
It would be the same. It's literally a lot of those houses were built, and that was kind of the reason why it was hard to explain to some of those residents why they weren't included in the original. It's like, well, my house was built in 1927. It's a stone Tudor. I have the same,
Right.
thing as this house over here, so why were we left out? So. the
Well, some
question
of it
you
is
just have to
because
look
there's a
at-
time, the themes are established by the National Register folks. The Department of the Interior has regulations and a series of themes, and you fit into the themes. And the theme had an ending time frame of 1945, I think it was. So if your house was younger than that, you weren't couldn't be part of the theme.
Right. Yeah, and that wasn't the reason for Sunset Hills. It was literally, they just ran out of money to add to the cultural resources study. So,
Really?
yes.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Institutional knowledge.
Well, I mean, but just think about Sunset Hills. The houses are exactly the same and they're closer to the city. So the building came out from the Liberty Tubes. That's what spurred the development when the Liberty Tubes opened in the late 20s. So they were some of the first houses built. So there's actually some houses that are
Older.
Yeah.
So we could actually take a look at Sunset Hills under the existing themes.
I think you could. I guess my question is, since you said there's no gap there, I'm not sure what was kind of in the way, contiguously speaking. I mean, you've got Dormont, like if you look at Scott Road, it's Dormont up until Piermont, I can't think of the cross street, and then it's Mount Lebanon. So it might just be that it's on that side of the road.
Yeah. We could ask the state historical and ask them if,
Yeah, Bill Callahan would be the person to ask, because
Yeah,
he was
Bill
actually on
Callahan.
this board when they wrote that plan.
He would know. So he would probably be for a good person
yes.
to get some feedback on it. Maybe I'll touch base with him before the next task force too, before, so I have some idea where we're headed before I start pushing this into the comprehensive plan.
Right. If I may, I think that's a good project and I certainly wouldn't look to have a second district. Um, to me, there would need to be a pretty good reason to try that because I see that being a whole lot of work, whereas it seems like we've got a lot of the work done with the existing district.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we should be able to find a unifying theme to do it that way, because creating a whole separate historic theme for a separate historic district is, you know. Okay. All right, that's the direction I will go in terms of my primary thing, pushing it into our
Thank you.
comprehensive plan.
Thank you, Bill. It's wildly popular with the residents, so thanks for any work you can put into it.
Okay. And overall, as part of the discussions, I mean, one of the things I'm focusing on is establishing historic preservation as a component of neighborhood resiliency, because that's one thing that there's discussion, whether it's zoning or that sort of thing, is this notion of maintaining neighborhoods. But people don't always think of that as being part of historic preservation. But whether a neighborhood is very old or only 50 years old, there's still this notion of neighborhood resiliency that is part of historic preservation.
Right.
You know, and we talked a little bit about that whole Moffett Street situation, which was one in which basically, once it got rezoned, you sort of were attacking the neighborhood resiliency as soon as the rezoning was done. And I don't think the people who lived there had a foggiest idea what was going on. That basically you create a border situation between different types of neighborhoods. And it's a battle over what's our neighborhood gonna look like in the future, but zoning then, is an important part of that. And then I think that's something that should be kept in mind when we think about zoning, because if we just think about how we need to increase the number of multi-residence structures. Right there, we think about it, that's right on the border there between, you look in one direction, you got all those multi-resident places and retirement communities, and then you look the other, you got a school and houses, right? And so here's a border, and you got a border like that, you're gonna get conflict if you start playing around with zoning and moving things around, because you could have predicted this situation occurring actually if you thought about it. But anyway, that's one thing that I have in mind as I'm listening to some of this discussion. There is plenty of discussion about this notion of neighborhoods and resiliency and so forth, which is one reason why I have a good idea having economic development and resiliency together, right? So it might be a very positive thing, this new board in the long run. So anyway, that's what I got out of our first focus group meeting. We will have some more. Matt, you have anything about the Economic Development Council?
I don't, by virtue of the last meeting got canceled due to staff illness. Was just walking in the street and looked in the windows of East End Brewing. It looks like it's moving forward. So that's the extent of my report.
March 2nd
Yeah.
is the opening.
Yay.
Historical Society. Krista was doing that. I was gonna volunteer to do that if you guys, we need to have somebody for the next couple months out as our rep to meet with them. If you guys want me to.
Would you please? I've got my mother, got a lot going on.
Yeah, I mean, we can rethink it in April. We're only talking about, but I would like to, with everything that's going on. I know Jeff Hurd was at my focus group. So, there with stuff going on, I think we do want to keep that connection, right?
Absolutely.
So I will contact Jeff and let him know that I am the new liaison, our new liaison with them. Planning board, anything?
They canceled the last meeting. There were no applications, and there are no applications this month either, so there are no meetings.
Wow.
Yeah, and so they just didn't have anything to meet about, so. Which
That's a switch.
unusual, I think. Isn't that pretty unusual? No?
Depends on the year.
Okay, yeah, they didn't have anything, so. That's my report.
It's gonna be quiet. It's usually gonna be quiet in the beginning of the year because of the holidays.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And partnership design.
Yeah, that's me. So they do not have set meetings, so I just met up with, Eric Millerin, if I'm saying that name right. I met with him on January the 24th, and he said since they don't have a set schedule, if there's an update or he wants to get together, then I'll just be emailed. But, he took me way down to ground zero and all the way back up. So there's a lot of things that we talked about that you probably are already aware of, but I will just go over if you want what we talked about. So basically we covered three things. So Vibrant Uptown 1 is hopeful to have that completed by the spring of 2023. He said that the delays have had nothing to do with the planning design committee or the municipality. It's the contractors. So don't blame him. Some of what VU1 entailed was sidewalks, conduit, which is electric underground wires, the poles, which were last updated in the 90s. They removed the planters that had no irrigation. And so he referred to it as VU1 was not the fun stuff. It was the stuff that was necessary. Then phase 2 is Vibrant Uptown 2. Placemaking elements is what he called it. Creating a special place to relax, hang out, entertain, read, a place to go somewhere before you have dinner in Uptown. They would like to add a space to host bands or have some sort of music or playground, set it up like a plaza, something that's fun and engaging. And then the possible locations for that was they're looking for flat areas. They were considering the Clock near East End Brewing, or in front of the municipal building where the planters are along, with the 2 parking spaces by Sesame Inn. The 2 parking spaces by the Sesame Inn, they want to remove because they're under the light, which makes it illegal and dangerous. And the Alfred lot where the dumpsters are located in the alley off Alfred, or redesign Clearview Commons, with the attempt to eliminate loitering. But then they are like, what do we do with fountain? So that was kind of all the things he was thinking. The start date for Vibrant Uptown 2 is summer 2023. They would have a committee of 10 people with 3 to 6 months of planning with a $50,000 to $60,000 budget. And then we also talked about design guidance. This would offset the owner's cost to design front of the businesses with grant money. But before they can receive the grant money, they have to have design guidelines. So right now they have $25,000 to create design guidelines. They are contracted with Landmarks SGA, which specialize in historic districts that will help them create the guidelines. And then the steps will begin with public meetings, draft work with committees, more meetings to fine tune until they actually create the guidelines. Once the guidelines are created, there would be a brochure for the business owners to follow if they want the money. And then some things he said that they are looking at are like glass lighting on it, signage, pizzazz, something that really, and then they would hope to wrap that up by summer 2023. And the other thing he mentioned was the public art. They were working with Karen Mintzmoyer. She's an artist. She has a website if anybody wants it. The partnership has $50,000 to $60,000 allotted towards art, and the municipality is lockbox $80,000. Mara Dowdy is heading that up, and I asked him where will this art go, and he said it will be installed in the planters, architectural flowers with lighting. The garage would have like a vinyl application to the windows to make it look like it's a mural. Maybe the saloon, maybe adding statues in Clearview Commons. And that's all I got. But I found out about it in my little hour meeting with them.
That was a great report. Excellent.
And thanks for doing that. Yes, appreciate it. All right, well, that's all that we have on the agenda. Is there anything else for the good of the order?
I added one thing. I sent you all an email about the public discussion that we had last month. Gateway presented some figures that they created on how much it will cost to maintain all of our streets, whether they're brick, asphalt, or concrete, and sidewalks were a little bit included in that discussion as well. And I found it really interesting. Kind of the takeaway is that if we continue investing, including inflation, including a set inflation number, if we include if we continue investing 3 million a year approximately, like we have been doing, and we want to continue to preserve the brick streets, as we've stated, those roughly 8.5 miles, and if we don't want to change the number of 3 million, it will impact the quality of our streets. They will go down, and it will be somewhat noticeable for residents. Right now, we have a metric that we use to track all of the streets. And it's called the PCI index. It's using software with a vehicle that drives around and measures the street, as you guys are all familiar with that. Our current PCI right now across the municipality, including brick streets, is maybe an all-time high, definitely at a high of 79. And it's estimated that in 30 years, if we spend 3 million a year, then the average street PCI across the municipality will degrade to about a 60, which would probably be noticeable for some residents. 60 is the minimum number by ordinance. The commission has previously decided that our average street PCI number would be allowable to be. So in other words, that's the lowest we want to go. The takeaway from that discussion, the takeaway was, if we do nothing, the overall streets, all of them together, will start to degrade. So we probably want to invest more money in streets, but how to do that, where to get that money, that's future conversations at hand. So any questions on that? Wasn't the most eloquent summary.
Actually, I think a very helpful summary. So I think what I'm hearing is the relatively high cost of brick street maintenance means less money for other streets, and that's going to degrade the overall condition.
Exactly. And because the brick street preservation policy and the direction of the commission to include brick streets and to preserve them, now we are looking at all of our streets together and calculating the average, including brick in that. And in the presentation, it points out what we already know, which the brick streets are in the worst shape right now on average. So they do need some attention one way or another. Not all of them. But the average PCI is lower for brick than for the other streets. And like you mentioned, it's more expensive to reconstruct them. So it's no surprise that's going to cost more money. But now we're looking at it all together and budgeting for it together at the same time every year.
Yep. So I think what we contemplated in the plan was looking for opportunities for cost savings together with other governmental authorities. And it's probably time to start re-engaging in that process. I think we talked about whether to try to form a committee with other local governmental authorities along those lines.
Yeah, I think it would be a great time. Yeah, there's nothing on there's nothing on the docket for this year to be reconstructed in brick. So we have all year to look for some funding sources. And as we start to, you've already said this. Yeah, I'm just repeating what you said in the past. But as we start to reconstruct brick, then it'll create some business opportunities for some other vendors. Maybe some nearby municipalities would want to partner with us as well. Maybe that cost will go down, but maybe it won't. Maybe it'll go up. I don't know.
Right. Hard to measure in any case. Right now, we've got a metric that trends downward.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Why don't can someone, Mindy, can you email me the finalized brick streets policy? I was trying to find it on the municipal website and was having trouble with that.
Sure, I will do that. And I just emailed the whole team the link to that public discussion. Yeah, sure, brick street policy.
Great, thank
It's not on
you.
the website because it hasn't been approved. That's why it's not there.
Right,
So you couldn't not find something that's not there.
understood,
Yeah,
understood.
thank you for that. I thought it was approved.
No.
Yeah, okay.
So I will take a look back at that and come back to the group with some thoughts on it at our next meeting about what steps, more concrete steps to take in terms of engagement,
Okay,
assuming it's adopted.
When I spoke with Aspenwall, they were very interested and she was gonna get back to me on how a couple of the contractors they were using, how they performed, because they installed a couple of streets last summer.
oh,
So
nice,
I'll circle back and email her.
great.
Terrific.
Okay, good. Anything else? If not, I'll accept the motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Matt seconds. He's on vacation.
Are you on vacation? Good for you. I think I see palm trees out your window there.
Yep.
All right, our next meeting will be March 20th, 5 PM. We'll need everybody on board.
Sorry I was late, everyone.
Well, that's fine.
Oh, he's okay.
Thank you.
Thanks
Thank
for
you.
attending.
Thank you all. Take care.
Appreciate it.